Night and day, men and women, two sets of opposites that manage to coexist. The world is a constant, but it still appears differently during the day than it does during night, similar to how men and women perceive the world differently. Consider how you communicate with others. Are your behaviors different than your mother, sister, brother, or friends? Men and women have different social expectations, experienced roles, and genetic makeups. Therefore, the way they communicate is different. This famous comic by Zitz briefly demonstrates how men and women communicate differently. Surrounded by my peers, family, and friends, I've been able to observe communication differences among them. Although men and women manage to coexist and communicate effectively within our world, their methods of communication do vary. Today, I'm going to highlight how men and women communicate differently in three main forms: verbal communication, nonverbal communication, and visual communication. First, I'll talk about verbal. It's often perceived that men do not speak as much as women. However, the statement is not completely true. In a recent study conducted by Stephen Brown, when asked to describe a picture, women took an average of 3 minutes to describe it, whereas men took an average of 13. Harriet R. Tenenbaum noted that men often take more time to respond while communicating, and they utilize more words or sounds such as or sh. Good communication is when both conversationalists communicate in equal amounts. A method of measuring how well a conversation is balanced is by observing the amount of overlaps and interruptions. Overlaps are considered good communication etiquette because friends often finish each other's sentences, whereas interruptions are poor. Cindy Griffin noted that in mixed-sex conversations, the conversation was not as balanced as in the same-sex conversations, because men tended to dominate and speak louder than the women. Stephen Brown added that in mixed-sex conversations, there were 5 times more interruptions made than overlaps. Women tend to communicate with more of an emotional appeal than men do, but their vocalization is more detailed and in-depth. According to Cindy Griffin, women are more in tune to the words and sounds, which makes them typically better at learning different languages. Quote, linguist Robin Lakoff, pioneer of language and gender, noted that rather than firmly stating what they mean, women often make their sentences sound more like a question by adding an annotation towards the end. End quote. Since women are more attuned to their emotions, that makes them more empathetic and more comprehensive in their thinking, and this often transfers over into their conversations. Women tend to use hedges in their conversation to respect the needs of others, and since they focus primarily on emotions, they emphasize the importance of feelings. So in general, their conversations are less confrontational, less abrupt, and more balanced. Although words do carry a large meaning, actions do sometimes speak louder than words, which is why nonverbal communication is also very important. Men and women contrast in nonverbal communication because nonverbal is more of a learned behavior than genetic. So societal gender roles may play a larger role in this type of communication. According to Cindy Griffin, men are typically less responsive communicators than women. They maintain less eye contact, and they show less expressions in their facial features. This could be due to societal gender roles, because as young children, younger boys are encouraged to show less emotion, whereas girls are encouraged to be more sensitive towards others' feelings. In addition, men tend to stand further away from other people while communicating and avoid excessive contact. Instead of stepping forward in a conversation, they will typically lean forward. Women tend to maintain more eye contact, and they include more emotion in their facial expressions. For example, women will often smile as a friendly or invitational approach. In more serious situations, women's expressions may be more stern, but they often will include a smile, so they appear less confrontational and make the conversation less intimidating. Women are less concerned with their personal space when communicating with others. They tend to stand closer to each other, and if you observe women, you'll often see them touch someone's arm or shoulder while talking to them. When words or actions fail, pictures or visuals are often more of a universal method of communicating. Visual communication is yet another important aspect of communication, especially with current technology, where visuals are constantly being used to appeal to the consumer, public, or individual. It is commonly assumed that students, especially males, learn more effectively when visualizations are made. This is due to which side of the brain is being utilized. Males tend to utilize the left side of their brain more often, which is the more logical side. According to Cindy Griffin, with visualizations such as pictures, graphs, etc., people are able to see the growth, size, proportions, or relationships. Caroline Gordino noted that men's visualization communication is more spatial rather than detailed, whereas women do not utilize graphs or pictures as much as words and verbal communication. Rather, they're able to form more effective conclusions from lectures, examples, or stories. Women are definitely more dependent on verbal and nonverbal communication than visual communication. But in a visual context, women will pay more attention to details rather than the large general picture. Colors, signs, or symbols are examples of what women tend to notice more than men. Women are better able to create or formulate a message from the picture or visual because by being more attuned to their emotions, women have grown up with the thought processes that they must search for the hidden message. All forms of communication may vary due to social experiences, expected gender roles, and genetic makeup. Men and women coexist within their world. Their methods of communication vary through verbal, nonverbal, and visual communication. Each of you communicate in your own unique way. We have all grown up in various places with different expectations and contrasting methods of behavior. However, we still manage to coexist and communicate despite our differences. Although men and women communicate in different ways, in order to effectively communicate, one must make an effort to understand the other.